All right, everyone. I'm going to give you a short, hopefully short, background lecture about the hero's journey and some archetypes and talk about what you're going to be studying. I promised you I'd give you this yesterday, but I spilled water all over my school computer on Monday night. And so I didn't have a computer at all on Tuesday. And so I'm getting caught up. I'm really sorry about that. I'd like you to try to watch the movie Moana and go through this study guide that I'm giving you during this week that you have off. Hopefully, that won't be too much to ask. I know you have to finish your mandala project, and I did give you some creation myths to watch and respond to as well. So, I would hope that you could try to maybe do this. If you don't get through the entire study guide, we'll finish it on Monday, but I would like you to watch the movie, even though you've seen it before, and study it. So with some background information, hopefully you'll study this like like a scholar of culture instead of just using it like a little Disney movie. All right. So you're going to be learning about the Pacific Island creation myth, one of the examples, one example of a creation myth from that part of the world. There are many. You're going to gain some background knowledge about an epic. What is an epic and what is an epic hero and the hero's journey? And you're going to practice this by looking at a pattern of the hero's journey with a model of Moana. That's the example we're going to use. Okay, so you're going to watch it on your own and you're going to fill out the document that I'm assigning to you on Google Classroom. So we're going to study characters like the villain, the hero, the sidekick, the trickster, the wise person. And we're going to study epic situations and plots. What is an epic? What are some themes or symbols of an epic? And the pattern of the hero's journey. All right, this is kind of cool. So some of the main characters we'll find in most stories, these are archetypes, okay? So the hero, obviously, but we're going to have a separate slide, a whole bunch of slides to talk about the hero, so I didn't put that on here. But some of the other characters that you see in almost every book, in every movie, in every story are, of course, the villain, because if you have a hero, you have to have a villain. Otherwise, there's no plot. There's no conflict. So the hero can't just be going about his day, having a great time. There has to be some kind of a problem, and it's usually caused by the villain, right? Heroes need sidekicks. So we can argue all day long about who Harry Potter's sidekick is. Is it Ron? Is it Hermione? Does he have a whole crew? Probably, right? But they play different roles. The scapegoat or the outcast is a character that, or is an archetype that is important because sometimes they're the hero, right? Like I would say Wolverine is a hero, but he's also an outcast. He's the person who sometimes gets treated like he's not acceptable, he's not tolerated by society or by the group because he's different. Maybe he has a dark side or she has a dark side. And so that is a specific type of character that often gets blamed for things in the story that happen that go wrong. I would say maybe Snape is a scapegoat or an outcast in Harry Potter. All right. The wise person or the helper, that's a really, really important character in an epic story. So they need someone like a fairy godmother or a wise person, a mentor, a teacher. Um, Dumbledore would be one of those, or Yoda, right? Someone who tells the hero, gives the hero advice. Sometimes they give them magic. They teach them things that they need to know in order to kind of get through the really, really hard times in their story. All right, the next is the trickster or the fool. Lots of stories have a trickster because they're fun. Usually we can relate to them. Everybody wants the class clown, right? Like Bart Simpson, or all the Disney movies have a trickster or a fool to kind of lighten up the mood when something sort of sad or intense happens. They always bring in the trickster to play games or to make something funny happen on the screen to lighten up the mood. And of course, a lot of times in a movie or a book, there's a love affair or a love story, right? So these are just a few. There are many, many, many archetypes. But if I went through them all, this would be an hour long. And I am going to pop a video in here after this slideshow that I'd like you to watch about kind of some of the archetypes that'll kind of embed it into your brain a little bit better before you start watching the movie. All right, so an epic hero. So an epic means something huge, right? It's epic, it's big, it's gigantic. And an epic was started like way, way, way back in ancient stories. We're going to read one of the first epic hero stories ever captured in writing, and it's called Gilgamesh, and we're going to read that next week. You might also be familiar with the story The Odyssey, which is something from ancient Greece. It's a story of Odysseus, and he's the one that goes out on the ocean and has all those adventures with Poseidon and the sirens and all those characters. So it's a big, long story. And here's some things that you usually find in an epic. The hero is usually a really great, amazing person. They might be a demigod. They might be part human, part magic, right? They follow a specific plot structure, which we're going to talk about. These are some of the characters. Luke Skywalker, that's an epic story, Star Wars, right? Hercules, Harry Potter's an epic because there's like 7 books or something in that story. That's an epic story. There's many, many, many journeys within that. I would say maybe the Odyssey, of course. I would say maybe the Wizard of Oz is an epic story because she takes a journey and it's got all kinds of issues and problems to solve. The epic hero usually has some flaws. That means they're not perfect because we like to relate to them. Okay. Oops. They sometimes have pride. Sometimes they brag about themselves. They think they're really awesome. Not always. Um, Usually the hero is respected, but not always likable. Sometimes they might be a person that people don't like. I would say Harry Potter isn't very, lots of the characters don't like him in the story at the beginning, right? He's kind of an outsider. All right. So there are other things. They sometimes are born into royalty, like Simba was a character who was born as the son of a king, right? And he had to deal with all the problems when his father was murdered. Sometimes something traumatic happens. Harry Potter's family was murdered, right, by that evil person. Um, they usually have to go on an adventure. They usually have someone to help them, a supernatural helper. So a magic, like a wizard. Frodo in the Lord of the Rings has a wizard to help him. Harry Potter has a wizard. The hero must prove themselves many times. They have to face all kinds of trouble and they have to try to get over that trouble. If they die, they sometimes go to the underworld and then they get to come back from death. That's a very common story. Even in Harry Potter, at the very end, he kind of dies, right? And he has to face the evil dude. What's his name? Voldemort. That's right. And then usually at the end, they're celebrated by coming home. Okay. So they're usually very strong, they're very smart, and they're very confident. They're helped or harmed by interference, like gods or different tricksters come along and interfere with them. They hold some values of their culture, and the people in their culture look up to them. Usually they have to find themselves. Um, they have to grow up during the story and they have to become more wise by the end. Like when Dorothy at the end of the story of the Wizard of Oz, she has to find her way home and she realizes home was within her all along. So they have to face lots of dangers. Now, there are certain plot structures in an epic. They usually have strange creatures, monsters. They usually are gods or some kind of like magic, some huge adventures. They usually have bad weather. They face some kind of really terrible storm or something that they have to get through. Think about your favorite stories. Is this fitting? I think if you think through them, you will see that this is almost the same in every story. And they usually take a trip to the underworld or somewhere very dangerous. Sometimes they have to talk to dead people. You're going to see in Moana, if you haven't seen the movie yet, you're going to see she talks to someone after they die, and that person gives her advice. All right. So the situations or the plots or the themes that you're going to see in an epic are courage, fate. Like someone's world is like in Star Wars. It's the whole universe that's being like the fate of the universe. Will it be destroyed? And the hero has to try to save everyone. Right. In Moana, that's true too. Beauty, loyalty, life and death situation. All right. So look for in Moana, which characters can you identify? Who's the hero? Now, that might sound like an easy question because the story is titled Moana, but a lot of people like to argue that Maui is the hero. So I disagree. I'm just going to say it. But is Maui, maybe there's 2 stories within one. Maybe Maui is the hero. You could argue that, right? So let's think about who's the mentor, who's the sidekick or the companion. And I'm not just talking about that little chicken, hey, hey, although I do love that chicken. There's father and mother figure, a trickster, a jokester. See if you can find those characters. I would say Hey Hey is more of a joke, right? He makes everybody laugh when things get really intense. So the hero's journey is a type of adventure that the hero goes on. I'm going to show you a little video that I found that explains this really well. So